there's got to be a better way to do life and relationships and just there's got to be some better way. And there is indeed a better way. In fact, there is a word that's repeated 100 times in the New Testament. And when you're studying what God says, it's nice to look for repeated words or phrases or patterns. And very much like if your parent tells you something many, many times, it probably means it's really, really important. And so our Heavenly Father has repeated one word 100 times in our New Testament. And, you ready for the word? Drum roll, please. Well done. It is the word alelon or alelon. Some of you are like, that's Greek to me. It is Greek, actually. And some of us who studied years of Greek, it's still Greek to us. So we need to figure out, what does this mean? What is this word alelon that's repeated 100 times in the New Testament? What does this mean? Because out of those 100 times that it's repeated in the New Testament, half of those times, exactly 50 of those times, it's used in the context of a command. Okay, so what I'd love you to do is turn to find one of those commands in John chapter 13. If you want to use a chair Bible, there should be one in the chair in front of you. It's page 867. And it's the New Living Translation that I'm going to read from today. And if you would like a Bible, please take that Bible as our gift to you, our investment in your faith. So, what does this word alelon mean, and how on earth can it cure the epidemic of isolation? Before you read in your copy of the Bible, I'm going to just show you on the screen a couple verses, and then we'll go back to our scriptures and compare them. But I'm going to show you where this word is found in the context that we find it. So, John 13, here we go. So now I am giving you a new commandment. Okay, pause real quick right here. Jesus is the one saying this. This was in the context of a people that lived under the weight of a lot of laws. Have you realized that we have a lot of laws on the books of our state and our nation? Well, we think we have it bad, but the people then, when they were living in Israel, they lived under the weight of the 10 Commandments, which are pretty weighty, all-encompassing commands. But it got worse than that, though. They didn't just have the 10 Commandments. They had, anyone know how many 100 commands they had? Yeah, 613 commands. And these commands weren't suggestions. They were the law of God and the law of the land, and they were enforced pretty regularly. So you didn't just need to read these 613 commands. As a young kid, you would memorize 613 commands, and you would, could you imagine trying to keep them straight? Are you kidding me, right? Thou shalt root for the Buffalo Bills. I got that one down. But the other 612, I mean, just 613 is staggering. They had to learn them, memorize them, and keep them. And so they're living under the weight of just a ton of laws. And Jesus comes and he's like, hey, I've got a solution for you. I'm going to give you a new commandment. And they're like, yippee, 614. Now, this is only good news. It's only good news if somehow this is going to simplify or fulfill the others. And that's exactly what it does. Jesus isn't going to add to their burdens. In fact, he told them very clearly, come to me because my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I have a better way to do this. And so he's going to give them a commandment that's kind of an all-encompassing commandment that covers many of the other commandments in one commandment. And here it is. I'm giving you a new commandment, love alelon. Like, okay, that's odd. I'm supposed to love this thing. What does this mean? Well, just as I have loved you, you should love, say it with me, alelon. Okay, this is getting weird. Love alelon as I have loved you, you should love alelon. So let me ask you, how much has Jesus loved you? He paid for you with his life. That's a lot of love. And in the same way that he loved you with epic proportions, he's asking you to love alelon that same way. Anyone love alelon yet? Like some of you are like, this is getting obnoxious, Justin. Let's talk about what this word is. Okay, just a minute. Your love for alelon, it gets better. Love alelon as I have loved you. And your love for alelon will prove to the world that you are my disciples. You don't even need a fish bumper sticker to prove it. You don't even need a cross necklace. You don't even need a tattooed verse. I mean, fine, do any of those things, but there's another way to prove to the world that you are my followers, my disciples, and it is by your love for alelon. Okay, you ready to solve the riddle? Some of you are like, please, let's get off of Greek. Okay, alelon is the word that simply means one another. We translate it with two English words, one another. So go back in John 13, and let's read it together with the actual English translation. Verse 34. So now I am giving you a new commandment. Love each other, or love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. Okay, based on this, would you say that alelon is fairly important? Yes? No? I mean, significantly important to God and to his people. This concept of loving one another. So our love for one another is supposed to match the love Jesus has for us, and it's literally going to be our billboard to a world that doesn't get it. It's going to be our billboard that there's a different way to live and a different way to do life and a different way to relate to others around us if we have this kind of love. So it's used 100 times. Half of those times are commands, and a significant chunk of those commands, those alelon commands, are related to exactly what it says here, to love one another. Okay, there's something about this type of love that compels us to action. Why are you here this morning? I mean, maybe it's for the coffee. Maybe it's because someone dragged you here. I don't know, but I bet there's a significant number of you who are here because you love the people around you. I'm not going to make you raise your hands, because then if your hand's not raised, the person next to you will be like, you don't love me? But there's this idea that we gather together because we genuinely love one another. Now, this doesn't say like, and there's going to be times where we may not like. I mean, good grief, there's times where we may not like our kids or our spouse. But we're called to love them, to choose this kind of love that's this unconditional, sacrificial choice or decision. So love one another as I have loved you. And this is how you will prove that you are my disciples. Let me just ask you, just kind of step back for a moment. If this is one of the most significant commands, to love one another, and Jesus later boiled it down and said, I have two commandments for you. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Boiled it all down, 613 down to 2. Love, love. Let me ask you, when the world looks at Christians, do you think the first thing they think of when they think of American Christians is, boy, those people really love each other? Now, maybe for us, yes, and that's a healthy, great thing. I think in our community, we really genuinely are known for our love and our care for each other, and that's beautiful. But unfortunately, that's probably the exception, not the rule. Unfortunately, across America, many Christians are really known for their criticism of each other. We're really known at being experts at shooting our wounded. We're really known at dividing And so the world often looks in and they see a bunch of divided, upset people who really don't like each other all that much. And Jesus is like, no. In my family, in my faith family, I want you to be marked by your love for Allelon. I want you to be marked by how you relate to, care for, and love one another. Okay, the second significant command related to Allelon in Scripture, the first is to love. The second, I'm going to put it on the screen for you, from Mark 9:50. It says, live at peace with Allelon. So in those 50 commands, a good chunk of them are about loving one another, and then a good chunk of them are about living at peace with one another. So again, zoom out and look at Christianity in America. Hey, we're coming into an election season. We're really good at living at peace with each other during elections, aren't we? Sarcasm, sorry. But live at peace with one another. Do you think it's possible that you and I can live at peace with each other, even if the person in the pew in front of you, or the row in front of you, or the chair next to you is going to vote for a different candidate in November? Some of you are like, oh, that thought just even sickens me. I want to throw up on them, right? I mean, we're so polarized, not just in the world, but in the church. Do you know that people that vote for donkeys and people that vote for elephants can still love King Jesus? Okay? And so we need to, I use donkeys and elephants for the GOP and the Democrats, okay? So don't say that's what I'm saying about the candidates. But just have to clarify here. Some of you are ready to oust me now. Okay. Can we live at peace with each other, my friends? I believe we're commanded to. And I believe in this polarizing season leading up to elections, it's our chance to show the world how to do this, because the world doesn't have a clue. The world likes living in an echo chamber of only people they agree with and ostracizing people we don't. And here in the church, it is not to be that way. We are to love one another. We are to live at peace with one another. Wouldn't that be a beautiful thing? The people on the outside should be able to look on the inside and say, whatever they have, I want me some of that. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they seem to care about people who are different from them. I don't know how they seem to like people who are different from me. I don't know how that works, but somehow at that church, there's people that love each other and live at peace with each other. And I would love some of that. That is Jesus' wish for his kids. Love one another, live at peace with one another. And then there's a third out of those 50 commands. There's a lot of them about loving each other. There's a lot of them about it being at peace with each other. And then kind of the rest of them go around one main idea. And it's the attitude that you have to love and be at peace with Allelon well. And here it is in 1 Peter 5:5. And all of you dress yourselves. Now, thank God all of us did that this morning. But he doesn't stop there. Dress yourselves with humility as you relate to Allelon, to one another. For God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. This should be as natural and normal for a Jesus follower as getting dressed in the morning. Put on your underwear and your clothes. It should be just as normal to put on humility. And humility has this idea of maybe I don't have life all figured out. Maybe the people around me know more than I do. Maybe I should help them and focus on their needs rather than just my own. I mean, there is this massive increase in this attitude of narcissism in our culture. This idea, and it comes from isolation, my friends. I'm telling you, the more isolated we are, the more you see narcissism go off the charts. But Jesus wants us to be dressed in humility as we relate to each other. How long do you have to talk to someone before you find out if they're proud or humble? You might find out before you even start talking. just in the way they carry themselves, just in the way they look at you or don't look at you, just in the way they interact with you. So how cool would it be if we just took Jesus' commands to heart and we say, okay, we want to be the type of people that know how to love each other, that know how to live at peace with each other, and we just know how to be humble. I would love someone in our church to write a book, Humility and How I Attained It. I'm joking. Are you humble? This is this idea of every day dressing yourself with this humility as we relate to one another. And only those who are humble in heart can focus on the people around them, the needs of people around us. Okay, so how do we do this in an isolated culture? In Jesus' culture, it was more of a communal type culture. In our culture, we're much more individualistic. We're based in achievement. We're based in competition. We're based in materialism. We're a different culture than the one Jesus was in. And so it's really countercultural for us to understand Allelon. So how in the midst of American culture, and there's a lot of great things about American culture, but in the midst of this isolation, competition, material individualism of our nation, how do we somehow embody the heart of Jesus when it comes to Allelon? Because see, a common idea and mentality is for people to say, I hear this from guys all the time, I can worship God better in my tree stand in the woods than in a church with people. And it's just this mentality, and I get it. I get what they're saying. They're communing with God, and they find that more significant and sacred than maybe what happens here. I get it. But it's this misunderstanding of the family of God. The family of God is called the ecclesia of God, or the called out ones. We are called out, and what we do when we're called out from the world is we are a people who gather.